Hey, what's up everyone? Adam here with brahwegotthis, and today I want to talk about a topic I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that is, are alternative characters or toons beneficial or not after the Deadlands DLC and Update 32 patch that's coming out here very soon? I think that this is actually a very interesting topic of debate now because of some of the new additions that Update 32 has brought to the game that have made having alternate characters less appealing. Now, before we get into it, obviously there are pros of having alt characters, but I now think there are also cons as well. And so we're going to discuss what those are and if having multiple characters is a must-have still. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to all the patrons. Thank you so much for all the support. Thank you to the newest patron, Marshall B. I appreciate it. And if you'd like to become a patron, check out the link below in the description. You can also watch me play live on twitch.tv/brahwegotthis. You can check out our website at brahwegotthis.com, and you can check out all of our other links below in the description. So what sorcery has provoked me into this madness of are alternate characters even beneficial anymore? Well, a little thing called the Armory system has been added to the game. This is a base game update that everyone gets for free that allows you to basically save loadouts and completely different specs in a furnishing, and you're able to change it on the fly at an instant. That means that you could have your main account be a DPS, but then if you have the skill points and the item sets and everything necessary, you can save a build that is a tank or a healer and click a button, and you are now tanking a dungeon as well. This has such a huge impact on so many players, it's kind of unreal. What this is going to allow players to do is essentially consolidate their builds into a few characters if they want to. And so I'm going to go into the pros and cons of this system here later, but first I want to address the question of the video: what benefit is having loads of alternate characters now? Is benefits outweighing the cons? Well, first off, I think we need to start by asking, why do people create multiple characters? Well, I think everyone has their own personal reasoning to why they do that, but I do think there are a few reasons that are pretty common among most players, and I came and narrowed this down to about 5. So number 1, players like to have multiple builds that they can play. This is a huge reason why I have 17 characters, or had 17 characters, is because when I got bored of a character, I would hop on one of my other 16 characters and have a different experience. It kept the game fresh for me, and it was just nice to do that. The con or the downside to having all those characters, though, is I would have to level all them up. I would have to regrind the skill points and the skill lines, and that takes a lot of time. And not all my characters are even fully leveled out to the extent or optimized yet because there's so many that I have. It puts a massive sense of being overwhelmed sometimes on me as well. And so that is one reason why people create multiple characters. Another reason is the huge benefit of doing writs and making loads of gold in the game by having all these characters that can do writs. A lot of players create 18 characters and do writs on them every day to maximize gold making and grinding crafting mats. And if you have the time to do this, this is one of the best ways to make gold in the game, but it takes time and it's very monotonous and can burn you out very quickly. A third reason is for role-playing. This is something that I really don't do, but a lot of people in this game like to role-play. Having more characters allows you to have more options and just allows you to be able to be more creative. A fourth reason is you can create PvP or PvE characters. Maybe your PvP build isn't going to spec as well as a PvE build, and so you need a completely different race or different class. And a fifth reason is to grind for resources by doing random daily dungeons, daily motif farming. The more characters that you have, the more opportunities you get for some of these activities. The next question we need to ask, though, is the process and the leveling process of creating alt characters friendly? Because this is a big question for people that want to make alternate characters. Some MMOs have an abysmal alt process that requires you to do things that you don't want to do again. ESO actually has a very friendly alt process. You get a character to level 50 in less than 10 hours with some help usually, or you can take as much time as you need. It's really multiple options to do that. But two things that make it even more friendly is that the game doesn't have a gear score grind, so when you get to CP 160, you will be at max item level. The other is the fact that champion points are shared between all your characters like Diablo's Paragon system. So when you hit 50 on an alt character, you will automatically be jumped to the CP level on your account. You don't have to grind those levels again. That is super friendly for creating alts. So with saying this, ESO has an innate friendly system. Now that we have addressed why players create alt characters and if it's friendly, let's dive into, does the Armory system provide more pros now or more cons for all the reasons why you create alternate characters, those 5 reasons that I just mentioned? And does it also make creating characters less friendly or less appealing now? And please keep in mind when I share these, part of this is my opinion and the other is just objective effects that this system will have. Let's start out with the obvious case that I think anyone could see. I think for the role players out there, I think creating alternate characters are still very beneficial for you. I mean, consolidating your characters into a few only limits what you can do for role playing. The Armory system actually multiplies what you can do with role playing because you now have all 18 of your characters that can have multiple loadouts. But the driving factor of roleplay, I think, in my opinion, is probably the race and the class you choose. I think that has to be a pretty big factor. So limiting your characters would hurt that aspect. So roleplaying alternate characters, in my opinion, is still very important and very viable. Another obvious case is the players that want all 18 characters for writs. Obviously, limiting yourself to only 6 characters would cut your profits, so it makes sense that it's still beneficial for you to create alternate characters because you can't do your daily writs on one character 4 times. You can only do it 1 time a day, even if you have 4 loadouts. It just doesn't work like that. So this is really heavily dependent if the characters you're creating are only for writs. Because the thing is it's going to take up skill points, and that's the reason, like on all of my 17 characters, I don't do writs on all 17 of my characters because I use those characters for PvE, not writs. And so it really depends on what you're creating your characters for. Now let's talk about if you create characters for farming, because I think this is where you start to bring some pros of the Armory system in and some cons of the old way. Obviously, having more characters means more chances to farm for transmutes, motifs, and other time-gated things. But let's be real here for a second. How many actual players spend their day, or even have the time to spend their day, running 18 normal random dungeons? I know that there are people that do this. I have some in my community, and there is nothing wrong with it. But in reality, not everyone does that. And everyone doesn't have the time to do that. Also, even if you have the time to do that, you probably aren't doing that for 2 straight weeks. You may do it here and there from time to time when you need transmutes or, what have you. But my point being is the majority of players don't even have the time to even do that every day. So what's the point of having 18 characters when your focus for the reason that you have multiple characters is you're farming for transmutes? Why not just have 9? Because you can run that a little bit quicker during the day. And also, when it comes to motifs, the fact that you can share quests allows you to run multiple daily quests on one character already because you can share them, like I said. So to me, unless you are someone who can efficiently run 18 characters most of the time through farmable things, I just don't see the benefit anymore of creating 18 characters for just farming. For me, the appeal is just not there. Again, that is subjective, but this is my observation and analysis on that. If you love farming in this game and you have the time to, obviously having more characters will be better. But for me, I don't run 18 dungeons a day, you know what I mean? On to the next one, which is for players more like myself. And this is the casual PvEers, the in-game type of players, maybe the, hardcore players as well. Is having multiple characters beneficial for us when we get most of our enjoyment out of just running content with different styles of play, or we just like to play different roles? I would say having 18 characters isn't beneficial anymore for people like myself because we simply just don't need them anymore. The Armory system allows you to have 2 free slots for builds. You can cut your builds in half by using the system. I'm actually deleting 8 of my characters on the server and will only have 9 because, again, the driving force behind me making characters was to play different classes and role styles. Now by consolidating, I don't have to farm as many skill points. I can put builds on a class that I've played a lot on, so I have plenty to work with. I have skill lines already leveled up that I don't have to grind again. I have sets already on a character that I don't need to transfer. It's honestly a paradise for me because now I spend more time on less characters, which means each of my builds will be even more optimized and even better. The one downside to this is the race though. This is something I realized when I was figuring out which characters I wanted to delete. If you want to be efficient, you will have to choose which characters you think will be the best all-around races for each role. Now, if you don't care about that, it really doesn't matter. But for me, I wanted to have some sort of optimization. So what I ended up doing is I have 3 classes that I have 2 different characters on. The tank and the stamina DPS class is on one character, the magicka DPS and healer is on the other. The races aligned better for those roles to pair up. Another thing you have to keep in mind is you only get 2 base slots. If you want to have more, you have to buy them. I don't know how much the slots will be, but if you don't want to spend money, you may just want to have 2 characters of each class. That way you don't have to spend any money unless you buy a character slot token. But for the most part, I don't see the benefit of having a slate of 18 characters for this type of player group. And lastly, let's talk PvE and PvP. For players that want to play both, is it still beneficial for creating alts? I think it's a yes and a no. For a lot of the reasons I just mentioned right before this, I think you can almost create PvP alts within the Armory system, but you need to pick carefully, again, the race and class you do so with, because I know that that does have an effect, and there are classes and races that are better for PvP. I think if you can draw a solid crossover between maybe a race and a class that you like for PvE, but can also use for PvP, then you can save yourself the trouble of even creating a sole PvP character. But I think that that is really up to the player, obviously, because it depends on what you really want to get out of PvP and PvE. So in conclusion, my general consensus of the Armory system bringing the viability of alternate characters to an interesting state. I think that depending on the player that you are, depending on what you get out of your alternate characters, you could make the case that alternate characters or having multiple alternate characters isn't viable anymore when you can consolidate. But for other players, I think that you can make the case that obviously it's still viable to have as many characters as you can. This is something that you really have to look at and see what you're trying to get out of the game. For me, I know that I don't need 18 characters anymore. I probably won't make 18 characters ever. I'm just gonna have 9 probably, because I'm gonna be able to do everything that I wanna do on those 9 characters. And it's gonna allow me to focus on those 9 characters instead of spreading me thin across 17. So I'm really excited about this. I love the Armory system. And if you want a guide on the Armory system, I do have a guide below in the description. But I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, heavy attack that bell icon to stay up to date on all the content in the channel. I really do appreciate it. It really helps me out. But I hope this helped. If you have any questions, if you want to leave your opinion on what you think, leave me a comment down below. But until next time, y'all, just remember to have faith, be great, and I'll see you on ESO.